The Friday Rugby Preview on Borders Rugby Radio with Stuart Cameron.
Hello and welcome to the Friday Rugby Preview programme, taking a look at tomorrow's games in the Borders. I'm Stuart Cameron. With me is Dale Clancy, and we'll be looking ahead to the start of the National and East Leagues involving our Borders teams, as well, of course, as Week 2 of the Premiership. But let's begin with the Super 6, and last week the Southern Knights got a 4-try bonus as they came from behind to salvage something out of the game in a 40-28 defeat at Meggetland against what appears to be their bogey side, Boroughmuir Bears.
Yeah, it's a high-scoring game. Obviously, Boroughmuir Bears have started off the actual Super 6 campaign better than they did the sprint. And I think to get a bonus point away from home for the Southern Knights, I think it shows a little bit of progress yet again. You know, the big win against Stirling Wolves away from home kind of got, that monkey off the back in terms of not having any points so far. So they got a good win away from home. And then they're, getting the bonus point is a little bit of an incentive for the guys to try and push on and try and push their way up the league, because Boroughmuir Bears have been in form. They're in really good form, along with Watsonians and Ayrshire Bulls, and it's a really keenly contested league. And I think the Southern Knights have done well just to get a bonus point away from home, because Boroughmuir Bears started that game heavy favourites. But again, little signs of progress. And
it's good that they, instead of the heads going down, I think it was 33-0 or something at one point, and they came back and scored 4 converted tries, got the bonus point. But the fact that they came back and didn't put the heads down is a positive sign.
Yeah, and I think, the Southern Knights have went through a transition period recently, because they had a mass exodus before the sprint. Obviously, Bruce Ruthven took over after Rob Christie. The Melrose Southern Knights fabric that we once knew then was all ripped apart, and it seems like it's starting to come together again. And it's easy for other teams in the Borders to look in and kick the Knights when they're down. But I think they seem to have got a little bit of a culture. They're bringing in a lot of young players, bringing them through, giving them game time, which is the thing that people in Scotland have been moaning about in terms of, in the wake of the Scotland under-20s. These are young players getting some good game time at semi-professional rugby. So it's a step forward for the Southern Knights, and I think it's good to see.
Well, we should be talking about their match against Ayrshire Bulls, which should be happening. But that one's off because Ayrshire Bulls are now the opponents of Glasgow Warriors up in Inverness. Obviously, they were supposed to be playing Worcester Warriors, and because of the problems over there with Worcester, they're not travelling up. So, very late replacement there. And it means that the Ayrshire Bulls game is now going to be taking place next Saturday, the 10th of September. So, disappointment there, but an extra week for Southern Knights to get their act together.
Yeah, I think so. It'll give them a bit of time to maybe get the squad refreshed. That's going to be a really difficult game for the Ayrshire Bulls to Glasgow Warriors, and what's happened with Worcester, as unfortunate as it is down south, if we look at our own shop in terms of our own club rugby, you couldn't have done that 3 years ago with a Premiership team, because they would have been so flat in terms of they would have had good quality. Like if you look at Ayr or Melrose, they would have had good quality at the time, but not in the depth that the Ayrshire Bulls have. So Ayrshire Bulls have been able to attract a lot of really, really good players, some of which will be, their old players will be lining up against them for Glasgow Warriors, like say Tom Jordan playing 12. So, that shows the stepping stone. And I've always said Super 6 is a progress. It's going to take time to really bed in. And that's another step as well, because they're going, right, semi-pro, you can play the pro team, and this is going to be, a bit of an exhibition match. And you couldn't have done that with maybe Edinburgh Accies versus Glasgow Warriors. You just couldn't have done that a few years ago. So it gives the Southern Knights a little bit of time to galvanise themselves and try and get some bodies back in the pitch.
It'll be very interesting to see how close Ayrshire Bulls can actually get, and that in itself will show you what progress is being made.
Yeah, I love it, because on Twitter there was Hugh Jones versus Jamie Shedden, and we've seen him at Riverside Park last campaign scoring 4 tries. He started this Super 6 campaign really, really well, and I know you've picked him out as a player to keep an eye out for the future. Robin Purdy done the same, and after I seen him, I was singing his praises. And this is the platform that you want as a young up and coming player. You've just won the Premiership with Mar, you go into semi-professional rugby, and now you're pitted up against pros. This is when you start seeing these players and you put them in a testing environment to see if they're capable of moving up another level into professional rugby.
So how tall is he? About 6'7" or something. He's absolutely massive.
Yeah, he's a really good, impressive, powerful player. He can play outside centre. He plays on the wing. He's got that pace. He does take a little bit of time to get up to speed, but when he gets up to speed, he's really hard to stop because he's a rangy player. He knows his way about a rugby field as well. His supporting lines are excellent, and he's got a good range in his fend, and his skill set's really good. So it's great to see players like that. He's not from the borders, but players like that, it's really good to see them come through.
So no surprise that our commentary match tomorrow will be the second big Premiership stroke Border League derby of the season. We're live at Riverside Park, Jed Forest against Hawick. And let's talk about that one now, because Hawick coming off the back of a draw with Selkirk, a result that wasn't really on the cards, I think, even though Selkirk have consistently performed well at Mansfield Park. So a great result for Selkirk with a depleted team, let's not forget. Not so for Hawick.
Yeah, I think Hawick will be disappointed with the start. I think that that's a game at home to start off your campaign against a border rival. They would have been looking to really put down a marker and stamp their authority on the league from there and say, look, we've got off to a good start. We mean business this year, but credit to Selkirk, they stuck in. And, things happened. There was a couple of scuffles, an interception try. That game could have went either way, and it would have been even worse if it ended up in defeat for Hawick. But we did say last week that it was one of those games that is difficult to call. It's a border derby. Selkirk could do well down at Mansfield Park. It seems to be a bit of a sticky game for Hawick at the moment, playing Selkirk. But it shows that Selkirk have a bit of hunger to stay in this division. I don't think I was too harsh on Scott White the other week, but he needs results, and that is a brilliant result away from home. After the campaign that they had last season. So Selkirk welcoming some new players and fresh faces as well during the week, I see. So they're certainly looking to strengthen their squad and make a good fist of it this year. Amazing
stat though, isn't it? I mean, 22-all draw for Selkirk at Hawick. Then it was 23-22, just 1 point in it, last minute penalty from Kirkford, and now another draw. So they can do it, can't they?
Yeah, I just think Selkirk are a team that when their backs are to the wall, like when they are the underdog, they seem to perform a lot better. When they are, when they're heavy favourites, it's sometimes like the pressure gets to them, and it's early on in the campaign. It's completely different look to this team as to what was last year. But in terms of positive things to take from that, a draw, I think Selkirk will be the happier out the two teams. But another border derby, it's a very difficult start. Even though Jed got heavily defeated against Curry, it's a difficult game at Riverside Park. They made it relatively easy last year, Hawick, because Jed again didn't go through a lot of great periods and moments in the league. They were really struggling for long periods in the league actually. Hawick won comfortably down there, but this again is a new Jed team. It's the start of the season, fresh bodies, fresh look. So it'll be another difficult game for Hawick, and if you don't get two good results or two good performances, does that seep into the confidence of the team? So I think there's a lot of spinning plates at Riverside Park. It's an intriguing fixture, especially off the back of Hawick Selkirk last week.
In recent times, we've seen Hawick dominate Jed Forest. I think they've won the last quite a few. So Jed definitely need a result, and of course the danger is a Hawick backlash after last Saturday.
Yeah, and I think as the neutral, you would be expecting a Hawick backlash. Hawick have the opportunity to be what like Melrose were like in the last decade for Scottish club rugby. They do have they've got the facilities, they've got the players, I feel they've got the coaching staff, they've got the culture, they've got that embedded in Hawick Rugby Club. It is now putting it into fruition and making sure they can stamp their authority. Because they've dominated teams like Jed, Peebles certainly, Gala, but teams like Selkirk, they do then find it difficult. The Border League final against Kelso was a great example of a really tight battle. There were games perhaps in the past that Melrose would have really just walked over. So, from a personal point of view, I do want to see Hawick do really well, because I feel that something in the Borders needs to grip people again, and there's no better place in the Borders to grip it than Hawick, because they've got such a rich history of rugby, and it's a difficult game, but it can start there, and they can perhaps go on to a really successful Premiership campaign. But Jed Forest, they'll be, they've got a rich history of rugby too, so it's going to be an interesting game.
Now, Jed Forest conceded 8 tries at Curry at Millennium Park last week, but all the reports are saying that, Jed Forest were quite dominant in the pack. They were also, having a few opportunities which they could have turned into points but didn't, and also the fact that they stuck in for the whole 80 minutes.
Yeah, and I think you always get that from a Jed team. I think they, certainly up front, we've still got Paulo Ferreira, in the front row, Paxton, Finlay Campbell. They've got a good front row which is gelled over the last few years. I think they were probably, that was one of the fortunate areas for Jed. They didn't get a lot of injuries for those guys, and then you've still got the experience of the likes of Don Buckley. You're going to get a Jed team that's going to fight right until the end. They're a really dogged team. They were always difficult to play when I played them. And teams find it difficult to play against them. Curry at Maleny Park, it's a difficult place to play. They're a class outfit. Should have won the Premiership last year, but just couldn't get over the line against Mar in the final. So, that's a difficult game to start with. But if you're coming out with positive comments, positive reviews, in terms of you were dominating in the set piece and you were having points in the game where you were really, really taking the game to the opposition, especially Curry, then it puts you on a good platform to try and bounce off for the rest of the year.
Well, let's hear from Sean Muir, his comments at the end of last week's match when he was having a little chat with Kelly Mitchell.
Win at all costs, if I'm honest. We need to get wins on the board if we want to achieve what we want to achieve, but it's like you say, it's not going to be any easier. It's always a tough game at Riverside.
And what is the overall aim for Hawick Rugby this season?
If I'm honest, I would say top 4 again. You need to get into the top 4, and if you're in that top 4, you've got a shot of winning the league. So same again, top 4, hopefully a home semi-final, but if I'm honest, we'll take it week to week and hope to pick up some wins soon.
Sean Muir talking after last week's game against Selkirk, which finished all square at 20 apiece. I went down to Riverside Park during the week to watch the Royal Blues train, and here's the view from the Jed camp.
Well, Mark, good to see you down here at Riverside Park. It's been a few years since you were playing on this pitch.
It's 20 years, Stuart. Yeah.
20, is it?
Yes.
Yes. What are your memories?
Good hard rugby, a fantastic team culture, and a team that the whole town gets behind.
And how are you enjoying it at the moment, the culture at Jed? And obviously it's a new setup, it's a brand new season, coaching as well with Andrew Brown. You started last week in the Premiership at Maleny Park, very tough place to go, as we know. Curry, very hard to beat over there. And although the scoreline was not so great from your point of view, the reports back had encouraging signs.
There was some positive things about the Curry game. Obviously the scoreline is not what we wanted to see. A lot of the things that we tried did work, but there was mistakes that crept into our game. And Mark Cairns is an old Sevens pal of mine, and you could see the way they were playing. They were very good at the counter attack, very sharp out wide, and they punished our mistakes. Really, really top quality team. But we did get under their skin a lot, especially in tight, and that's how we want to build our game.
And of course, having Paulo Ferreira involved is a big plus for the season.
It is, yeah. He's been a really good club man for Jed over the last almost decade, and having him on he's a talisman, and he's good for the rest of the boys.
Top try scorer last year as well.
Top try scorer. We hope for a few more people to be scoring that many tries this season, but if he still keeps playing, then we'd like to see him right up there.
So what's been happening this week then since the game? Obviously it wasn't the start you were looking for, and you have a home match now coming up against Hawick, who again a bit of a bogey team. You haven't beaten Hawick for a wee while, but it's a new season and a new challenge.
New challenge. I think we're playing rugby slightly differently as well. We've got a few changes in personnel. The week started with a bit of analysis, both games. I mean, the Hawick-Selkirk game was a really interesting watch as well. Hawick are a really good team, but they're coming to Riverside, so it would be good to challenge them and challenge that string of results we've had in the past.
It's been very interesting seeing how the other clubs have adapted to this year's format. For the Kings of the Sevens, for instance, there's been 3 tournaments beforehand, which has never happened before. Very difficult for clubs to know exactly what to do. Some have gone with the Sevens, some have gone, like Jed Forest, full out 15s.
It's difficult. I mean, there's no way that we'll ever criticise the King of the Sevens and the Sevens setup, because it is world class. It's almost unique in the world, and the clubs have got to have tournaments where they earn money as well, because it's the bedrock of their finances. I mean, for us, we've had to concentrate on 15s because we're building this culture. It's up to the clubs and the King of the Sevens tournament to think about scheduling, but that's just the way we've gone this year, having won the King of the Sevens last year.
It must have been a tough decision to make as Kings of the Sevens champions, effectively, to miss out a couple of the dates.
If you think about the way the players and the length of the season they had to win the King of the Sevens, they were playing for nigh on 10 months. And at some point, they've got to have a break, and something's going to give, whether it's the quality of the sevens or the players' hamstrings. So we've got to think about that as well when we make our decisions.
So we've got the big game coming up then, the first home match of the season at Riverside Park, and it's Jed Forest against Hawick, and no team talk really necessary for that. What sort of squad are you going to be putting out?
Well, we're going to put out a competitive squad. We're going to put out a challenging set of forwards that carry the ball hard, and we've got an experienced backline this week. It's looking like potentially a good team. And
certainly on the backs, again, Rory Marshall, Robbie Shirageb, the Youngs, Jai McGough is back at scrum half as well. It's beginning to look very familiar.
Yeah, and we need that leadership. We need that leadership to come on the pitch as well as off it. And that's how we build that culture that we've been speaking about right the way through this interview. I mean, there's some really good experience there, and we will rely on that on Saturday.
Let's talk about the captain as well, Clark Skeldon. Good to see him be given the captaincy of the club, because he's a man who's been involved with Jed for many, many years.
He's a talented player, and he's a good thinker of the game as well. And it's always nice to see guys move into a leadership role. And leadership isn't about anybody else; it's about him. The leadership is about how you perform and how you speak, and he will do his own thing as a skipper. The boys have a huge amount of respect for him, and that's the main thing that you need from your skipper.
That's Jed's assistant coach, Mark Lee. Well, you can't beat a border derby, and of course the game is a Border League match as well in Pool A, so what's your prediction, Dale?
I think what I was anticipating at the start of the Premiership campaign, I think Hawick have to start as favourites. They've got a strong team. They've got heighty aspirations, because you can hear Sean Muir saying that they want top four. They want a home semi-final, which means they want to finish top two. So obviously they're looking at the top, so they know they need to pick up points. It's going to be a difficult game. Jed Forest at home in what should be reasonably good conditions for rugby. I'm sure there'll be a big support down there as well. There always is at Riverside Park. But I think it perhaps could be pretty close, but I would say that Hawick start that as favourites.
OK, well, Callum Patterson and Stuart McFarlane are commentators for that one, live on Borders Rugby Special on Borders Rugby Radio, with Sunday TV highlights from our website as usual at bordersrugby.net. Now, Selkirk have their first home game of the season playing Glasgow Hawks. Bruce Riddle will make his 100th appearance for the club, and he sat down to have a chat with Kelly Mitchell.
It was good to get back into competitive rugby last week, and I think, we stood up well against Hawick in what was a good border derby. But I think, ultimately we need to take that as a base level and push forward, take it into Hawks this week, and really try and keep ticking, keep pushing forward. I think, hopefully we'll get a couple of boys back and we can strengthen the squad a little bit more. But ultimately, everyone stood forward last week, and if we keep doing that week in, week out, I think we'll prove quite well and push ourselves forward to be competitive in this league.
And what are you expecting Glasgow Hawks to bring?
Games we played them last season, we know if we give them an early start, they will take that, and they're a difficult team to come back on, so we can't let them get ahead of us at the start. We need to really knuckle down from minute one and play our game of rugby, not get brought down into any dogfights, and just play our game of rugby, and I think we'll do well against them.
And you showed that the forwards had quite a dominance, especially in the scrums and go forward ball. Is that what you plan on taking towards the Glasgow Hawks game as well?
From a point of view, we've got a good strong forward pack, but I think also we need to not just rely on that. We need to look at it from a full 1 to 20, and everyone playing their part. We need the backs to play their part as well. So you can't just look at one specific group of players to carry a team. And I think against Hawick we did well, mixing the workload up between the forwards and the backs. So I think we've got a good structure in place and moves in place to allow us to do that. And I think up front, well, yes, we are strong. We've also got some exciting backs who will be able to cause big problems once they get their hands on the ball.
Bruce Riddle getting his 100th appearance for Selkirk. Obviously 2 points at Mansfield Park. They'll be looking for at least 4 at home.
Yeah, I think the Hawks got off to a good start beating Heriots, and Hawks kind of flattered to deceive last year as well, in terms of they were there or thereabouts, but just couldn't really string a run of results together. And we know how Selkirk performed last year, and I think this will be a big test for both teams. I think Selkirk are obviously trying to use home advantage, but you can hear what Bruce is saying there. He's got confidence in the squad that they've got. They've got a good forward pack. They've recruited really well over the summer, to entice some people to Philip Hawke to play their rugby for Selkirk. And I think, once they get them all on the park and get them going, they do have an exciting team, but it's still the same argument that perhaps Jed have had in the past, that it's the depth of the squad. And I think that's something that Scott White's been working on quite hard to make sure that they've got a little bit of depth, a little bit of coverage in that team, because, it's a difficult place to play. I think all the border teams, if you play them at home, they're difficult places to go, but when city teams come down, sometimes they just don't get wrapped up in the whole aura of Borders rugby. And Glasgow Hawks, they've came down to the Borders for years and years and years and managed to turn teams over. So it's going to be a really difficult game. But certainly, I think Selkirk will be looking and targeting 4 points, definitely.
And Hawks, of course, are the last team to beat Hawick at Mansfield Park in 2019.
Yeah, almost done it last season. It was very, very close, apart from, I remember a few handling errors and a few little mistakes from Glasgow Hawks, because it was a tight game and they probably should have won it, to be fair, in the balance of play. But it shows that they can come down here and mix up their style. They've got a robust pack. They have lost some players to Ayrshire Bulls over the end of the campaign. They've got a couple of them back, but for an overall squad, Glasgow Hawks are pretty strong. They've got a lot of depth. They've had a lot of representation in Scotland age levels as well over the last couple of seasons. So they've got a really good rugby culture for a relatively new team as well, in terms of rugby history. But they certainly know how to win, and they know how to win in the Borders.
Well, let's move on to National 1, which starts this weekend, and Gala are at home to Watsonians in the Battle of the Maroons. This one is at Netherdale. We all remember last year when Gala missed out by just 1 point to Heriots for that promotion battle, so no one will need to remind them that every point in every game is vital, particularly in a league packed with contenders for promotion.
Yeah, it's an intriguing league. I think I was the biggest fan in that one last year because it was the most exciting league. There was times you were looking at the table and you were going, there's 7 teams can get promoted here. Now there's 6. Now there's 5. And when it went down to the wire, Gala just couldn't get over the line, and it was the difficult games that they, towards the end of the campaign, that just passed them by slightly. A difficult game against Biggar at home was perhaps one of them. If anything, the team started cutting each other's throats, and I feel Heriots were the team that just kind of snaked through and managed to get the promotion. But player-wise, they built a really good culture. They built a really good squad at Netherdale. It's a different feeling as well at Netherdale, because I think for years it was flat. It was a bit like Kelso. Kelso were flat, and I feel those two clubs have really, really grown, and they've got that community culture back. I actually love going there. Before you thought, I'm going to go and see a club that's just trying to get some players on the field and try and get back to the top table, but they don't really know how. I feel they both have a lot of guidance in terms of the direction they're going, and Gala, yeah, they'll go again. They'll try and have a crack at it, but it's a difficult league. 3
relegated this season.
You look at it, a GHK coming up to that league, formidable in National 2 last year. They've got some really good ex-pros coming down, not just coaching but also playing. Highland have been able to string together some good results. Aberdeen Grammar have been a team that you obviously got relegated from the Premiership, and it'll be interesting to see how they fare. But all we're hoping is Gala, Melrose and Kelso, if they're not staying in that division, they're going up. So, we'll be hoping to have some good performances. And I think Melrose are a team that are building in the right way. I think it was difficult after the birth of Super 6 and the Southern Knights. Lost a lot of players, had to reshape their team, their club. There's been a little bit of pushing and pulling in terms of who's going where, but again, Melrose they're probably one of the richest clubs in terms of rugby history in Scotland. They know what they're doing, and they're going to be another team looking to go for it. But Gala certainly start this season coming as one of the favourites after the performances last year.
Went down on Tuesday night to have a look at the training session, talked to a few of the people, the background staff as well, and you're going to be hearing from Liam Scott and Jono, Stuart Johnson, very shortly. But first of all, the returning Keith Young.
Good to be back, first of all. Obviously, we're all started since I was 17. Obviously moved up to Watsonians, had a stint there, a few good coaches, good players, different obviously Edinburgh life and Edinburgh cultures, a lot different to the Borders as you can imagine. And then I had a stint at Hawick, went down there under George Graham, obviously as who I knew from Gala. That went really well, and then unfortunately did my shoulder just pre-COVID. So got an operation obviously throughout the COVID kind of battle in the hospitals and things, got that sorted out, and then thought I'd go back to my roots, kind of obviously just love being back here. Don't live so far, so I just thought I'd come back and give it another dance. So
But you're back as a senior effectively now, aren't you?
I am, yeah, much younger boys than me now. Obviously, my cousin's down in the Wanderers, so it's kind of getting to know the familiar faces that are coming up, 16s, 17s, 18s, and a few boys from under 20s even coming down. So it's good mixture of boys.
But as you say, you're 17 when you started at Gala. I mean, you're still young enough now. I mean, how is the career going as far as your own personal development is concerned?
Yeah, really well. I think I'm still in a really good, strong position mentally and physically to compete at this level. Obviously, from being a higher league up, coming down, there's no difference at all. Even if it is border clubs or Edinburgh clubs, that fight is still there. Obviously, you get a lot more in the borders. So no, I would say mentally and physically all good. A wee bit older and wiser, as you say, so that kind of helps on the mental side of things.
Still as ambitious as ever?
Yeah, so my ambition hasn't really changed. I've always dreamt of coming back to Gala. Obviously, I said to my cousin I would play with him. There's a 10-year gap difference there, so it's just kind of waiting for him at the right moment. So I feel like this is it, and just pushing on from there. Obviously, trying to get him into the squad, see how things go. But no, it's good.
Now, fantastic, of course, that the first game for Gala, which hopefully will involve your good self, will be against Watsonians.
Yeah, that's funny how things turn out. I leave to go to the club that I'm playing at when I come back to this club. So I'm sure I'll see some familiar faces from Watsonians. It'll be nice to chat to them after the game. Not so much in the game. It'll be strictly business for Gala, my dream club. So.
And how are you going to be fitting into the setup? I mean, you're always a winger, but you're a bit of a utility back as well.
Yeah, so I spoke to Jono, just said I'm still playing wing, kind of fullback positions. Obviously, as you say, very versatile in any role. So I'm happy to play any role the coach wants me to play in. As long as I'm playing and I'm fit and healthy, then that's the main thing.
It's certainly going to be an exciting year for the club, isn't it?
Definitely, yeah. As I said, there's a lot of young boys and a lot of aspirations from even the older boys as well, wanting to get out of this and that one and push on to the Premiership and start fighting those clubs that we faced 2 years ago.
There certainly seems, I mean, just looking at the training session tonight, there's a real determination to put things right.
Yeah, definitely. I wasn't involved last season, but I did go to a lot of the games, and they were very unlucky to get pipped at the post by Heriots. Obviously, if that changed things, they'd be into the Premiership. But no, I think it's good. The facilities here are really good. Lighting's really good. So it's just getting the numbers down consistently and fighting for those top positions.
And that's what makes a good club, isn't it? The competition for places.
Exactly, yeah. I think it's thriving now because there is a lot of boys coming down fighting for positions. So it'll probably give a real head scratcher to the coach to who to pick. Obviously, I'm fighting to get in there myself. No position secured. So just trying to get down Tuesday, Thursdays consistently and put in a good performance.
Keith Young, who's looking forward to playing for Gala, and a really good signing for sure. This season, once again, the skipper will be Liam Scott.
Take us back to the end of last year. Obviously, that disappointment where you missed out by just the 1 point, which you don't need reminding about, but I will remind you anyway. But how did that affect the squad? Was it a positive thing in the end? I mean, as the months have gone on towards the start of this new season, because they can do something about it now.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it is what it is. We were obviously let down a wee bit at the end of last season, and you know, we were a wee bit dejected with the result and that. But it is what it is. That's rugby. It's going to happen, and you get the really close ones. And unfortunately, we were on the wrong end of it. But we learned a lot last season. We learned how good a team we are, and you know, we've got the potential to go and do one better this season, and I've got full confidence that we can. Really tough league, some really tough games. You know, likes of Biggar and Heriots and stuff like that. Those are big games, and we had a string of big games like that towards the end of the last season, and you know, it was all or nothing. So no, it was really tough. It was really tough, but what can you say? It's just the way it is. You could talk about loads of games where we maybe didn't make the right decision or do the right thing, but no, I was pretty happy with how we played last season. I wouldn't take much back.
You got a home match, which is good.
Aye,
and of
always
course,
good.
Last year it was about 50 points, I think, at Gala, but it's a very different Watsonians now.
It is. It's a different Watsonians team. And towards the end of last season, I actually thought they were a vastly different team to what they were at the beginning of last season. So no, I think it'll be a challenge, definitely. We don't know what we're going to get, but we're looking for it. We're relishing it. And you know, it's just what we need. And
of course, in all the leagues as well, they're going down to 10, which means there's 3 in the trapdoor.
Yeah, exactly. So it changes things a bit, but no, we're just going to look at it the same we did last season. Take each game as it comes, and enjoy it.
Well, a man with a very wise head on his shoulders, Liam Scott, who's confident that this season will see his team fighting for that title. Also confident is head coach Stuart Johnson, who I also spoke to on Tuesday night.
Obviously we had a pre-season game planned in against Glasgow Hawks, and for one reason or another we had to call that off and decided to put our focus into Hoyk Sevens. We'd committed to Hoyk Sevens months ago and just felt it was the right thing to do to support other Borders clubs and put aside there. So we went there, obviously didn't get the result we wanted, but we backed it up the following week and obviously won our own Sevens here at Netherdale the following week, and obviously the week before got through to the final at Peebles. So no, we've had a really successful Sevens season, or start to the Sevens season, which has prepped the boys really well for this Saturday, as I say, against Watsons.
As I say, good to get some silverware in the cabinet before the season actually starts.
Yeah, exactly. Obviously, went one better than last season. We've actually got a trophy this season, so that's a really good start. And we're sitting top of the Kings of the Sevens table, but I've obviously parked that now from a season point of view, and we need to focus on the 15s. And as you say, it starts this Saturday at home against Watsons, which will. I think it'll be a really good fixture. They seem to have recruited really well this pre-season. They've had a really good result against Musselburgh at the weekend there, so looking forward to the game.
And this season is going to be so important, isn't it? There's only one promotional spot, as you well know from last year, and I guess the one message that came across more than anything else is the fact that you take your points when they're on offer, because points are so valuable, and you lost by just one over the season.
Yeah, obviously the boys are keen to go one better this season, and as I say, we've prepped really well. It starts this season, but you're right that if we look at last season, we missed out by a point, and it wasn't that Heriots game at home. If you go back early in the season, we didn't pick up a bonus point away at Ayr at the start of the season. We lost that quite convincingly. We got beat at Kelso in the last couple of minutes with an interception try. So there was points in the season last season earlier on that if we'd took some points on offer, we might have picked up a bonus point and might have got there. The Heriots game in the last game of the second last game of the season, that was a winner takes all, and we put everything into it, and unfortunately didn't come out on the right side, but it was a great game.
That disappointment, though, overall for the season and just not getting there, it would affect a lot of people in different ways. How did your squad react to that?
Yeah, look, they were disappointed, as everyone would be, losing out in that manner, especially by a point. But I think that's drove them even harder to go into this season and effectively right that wrong. Not just from a first 15 point of view, but the seconds as well. And you can see the guys behind. There's probably 32 players there. We've got a cup game against Kelso in this for the twos this Friday night, and then Watsons at home. So as a club, and obviously the under-18s are just across there as well. They've had a great start in terms of sevens and beat Melrose on Saturday in the league. So as a club, we're pushing to get everyone at top of leagues, and you can see by the numbers behind me and across there that players have really bought into that, and they're keen just to effectively get us back into the Premiership. And I think I said this last season, it's probably where this club deserves to be, but as you say, it's only one up. I suppose on the other hand, you need to avoid the bottom as well, because it's three down this season. So yeah, coming back to Saturday, look, we all know to get off to a good start in the league, you need to win, and you need to win your home games.
And Watsonians, of course, lots of history between the two clubs, same colours as well, and probably a different Watsonians to the one from last season.
Yeah, Watsonians last season, they were young, very young. A lot of them just looked out of school. Had them down here at the start of the season and won comfortably, 50 points I think it was, and then we went up there and won with a bonus point, but it was 24-16, something like that. So they got better as the season went on. They did the same the COVID season as well, the one that got finished early, and but as I said before, they've recruited really well by the signs of it. They beat Musselburgh quite convincingly. We're a Premiership side, so we're under no illusions that it's going to be a tough game on Saturday, but I'm just glad it's at home to start the season, and we'll obviously see how we go in our first 15s game.
How's the squad shaping up for this season? The ones who've gone and the ones who've come in, because Keith Young certainly top of the list there. Good to see him back.
Yeah, look, Keith's a great asset to have back. A back three player, loads of experience. He's quick. He's got a skill set, so he'll be key in that back three position. We haven't lost a lot of players. Robbie Irvin's in Australia. He's due back March time, I think. So lose him for the season, which is a big miss. But we've got Jay Coltman's came in from Hamilton. He's a Peebles guy. He was up in Hamilton studying. He actually helped us out at Berwick Sevens at the tail end of last season and moved back to Peebles. So he's come in. He'll add something. We've got Fraser Wilson from the under-18s, who's got international under-18s prospects, highly thought of from Scottish Rugby. So he's stepping up this season in terms of the middle row. So losing Robbie's a big miss, but we've got 2 players coming in that'll fill that void. Got a new prop from Orkney, Glenn Broth. He's come down to join us, so he'll add something in there as well.
But the main thing is you've got a lot of competition for places, and that's exactly what a coach wants.
Yeah, as I said, there's 32 guys behind me at the moment, and there's probably an injury list of about 5 or 6 on the sideline. So there's 40 guys there that are here every Tuesday, Thursday competing for jerseys. As I say, we've got 2 games this weekend, and there's more guys to come back into that as well. So competition for places is key. And as I say, we just want to get all 3 sides, first, seconds, under-18s, competing at the top of leagues.
And a very disruptive season for you due to COVID. There were a lot of call-offs as well, and it meant that you were about 4 or 5 games behind everyone else. You were still winning your games, but it kind of looked as if you were in the bottom half of the table. And then all of a sudden, you kept climbing.
Yeah, it was a bit of a strange season last season, that knowing you had four games in hand. I think we had at one point, but if you actually looked at the games in hand, they were against sides that were struggling at the bottom of the table, so we had every confidence going into them, but it just wasn't reflected in the league table. And you saw Kelso and Melrose getting a few plaudits for sitting up at the top of the league, but we knew we would get there. It was just a case of trying to catch up in games, and look, we caught them, we beat them, we overtook them. And then, as I say, we just came slightly unstuck at the second last game of the season. But in all seriousness, it was a really strong Heriots side who I think will go really well in the Premiership this season. So no complaints against that Heriots game, as I've already said. It was earlier on in the season, but that's where we need to get off to our winning start this Saturday and then push on in the first couple of weeks.
So Gala out to get off to a good start, but they go in a wee bit undercooked with no 15s game under their belt prior to this match, but they don't seem to be that bothered, Dale, and at the end of the day they all know how to play 15s rugby, so presumably you don't think Gala fans should be unduly worried by that. Yeah,
they've maybe not had a physical 15-on-15 encounter against other opposition to see where their levels are at, but sometimes just letting the guys go out there and play rugby is sometimes better than anything else. They'll be able to problem solve and see how the games go and manage it themselves on the field, and that's when their leaders take charge. They guide them and direct them in the way they want to play. They'll have been well drilled. They'll have been told what they need to do during the week. John will be certainly setting up the phases and the style of play that they want to try and approach this game. But I don't think it's about. It always helps to play another team. You get to know your levels. If you look at the Kelso Peebles game last week, you probably got a good idea of where both clubs are at. But they go in untested. Other teams can't look at them either. They could be a surprise package, because Watsonians certainly don't know how Gala's form has been, how these new players are going to bed in. So we won't really know until about 5 o'clock on Saturday evening.
Well, this time last season, it was Gala 50-odd points to Watsonians nothing, I think. So I think it's going to be a lot closer this time, but we put that down to a home win, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Watsonians last year, they were the team that really struggled with the change of the squad, with Super 6 really taking hold. And at the start, they were poor. Watsonians are a different team this season. They've managed to galvanise their squad and bring in a few fresh faces. So they'll be a completely different package than they were last year. It'll be difficult. Watsonians have always got a good style of rugby. They're always very skillful, high tempo rugby. But it's a Gala win for me.
OK, well, Sam Matthews is our man at Netherdale for Gala versus Watsonians. But on to Kelso, had a good warm-up with a competitive border derby away at Peebles last Saturday. 2 converted tries in both halves, so job done for them by 28 points to 0. They're at home this week to Aberdeen Grammar, who were relegated from the Premiership last season. And we spoke with Neil Hinnigan, Kelso's Director of Rugby.
Yeah, we're really looking forward to welcoming Aberdeen Grammar Rugby to Kelso for the first game of the season. Great to get a home game to start off with and then see if we can build momentum. So we're really looking to get the win under our belts, first game out, and take it from there. It's a big game for the club, and we've prepared pretty well. We had a run out at Peebles last week. It was a decent enough game. It got a bit scrappy at times and whatnot, being a border derby, but we got a sort of bonus point win away from home in the border league, so that's put us in a confident mood. But we know come Saturday it's going to be probably up another level again with Aberdeen being relegated from Prem 1, so effectively a Prem 1 outfit to start off with. So we've got to be on our mettle right from the off, and coaches and everyone at the club, players, committee, we've all been gearing up for the first game. So yeah, it's a bit of excitement now is for it, and we just can't wait to get started and see where this season takes us. It's a bit of a scary division, National 1, as is other divisions, due to league reconstruction and so forth. So there's 3 teams gets relegated from National 1, so, and there's only 1 team goes up, and yeah, we'd like to be pushing at the top end of the table, but we've got to be mindful that we need to get enough points this season to make sure we avoid any disasters, as it were. We don't want to be near the bottom 3, given that 3 teams going down is a big chunk, and we need to be in the minimum, have to be in that second 10 in Scotland going forward. So the club know, as a club, and the coaches, myself, we all know the objectives that's been set, and it would certainly make life a lot easier if we can get off to a winning start on Saturday.
Neil Hinnigan, and he's a man who will have done his homework on Aberdeen. But having said that, when you play on the first day of the season, there's no form to go on. Just look after your own game is the message, and use the home crowd to your advantage. And as we saw last season, Dale, Kelso's home support, one of the best in the Borders.
Yeah, I think I'd already said previous to this and earlier on that I think Kelso for a few years were a bit flat, and I'm not shy in saying that because the change in it is so great to see. Like, and I'm an advocate for all Border clubs thriving and being successful. But if you just look back on that Melrose Kelso game at Poynter Park last year, it was probably one of my favourite games. The atmosphere was absolutely brilliant on a Friday night. The weather was favourable, but the atmosphere at Poynter Park was absolutely brilliant, and they do support their team very well. They support them a lot better when they're going well, but they certainly get back behind their team. And Neil Hinnigan, he's a really good rugby guy. He's got so much knowledge, and it's great to see him back at Kelso really contributing to that club, and he really helps that culture. I think he's a big reason as to why they've been doing so well last season, and obviously pushing on to this year.
Well, also in National 1 this season are Melrose, who make the trip to Stirling County. These are the thoughts of head coach Bert Grigg.
Pretty good pre-season in terms of the boys being away on tour and getting some valuable match fitness across in Canada, then sort of the extended 7 circuit, and then a good 15s game versus Preston Lodge last weekend. Pretty comfortable in terms of where we are as a squad heading into the first game, and probably no real surprises in terms of team selection. A couple of unavailabilities is meaning that some youngsters stepping up from the WAS or in their second year of senior rugby getting their opportunity to play. So young Luke Townsend getting his first league start, and so on the bench Ewan Lindsay and Xander Ramage, who were really important for the Storm team last year as 9 and 10, will look to get some game time as well and bring that form from last year onto the pitch into the first team. So looking forward to seeing how we go up at Stirling.
Bert Grigg. So what about Melrose's chances this season? Because they did pretty well. I think they got the double over Heriots, didn't they?
It's difficult to gauge with Melrose again because of the Super Six impact, and losing players like Sam Derrick and Aidan Cross to the Knights. These players need to come in and then stamp their authority. They've also got David Colvin out of there. He was a big player for them last year as well. He's been playing for the Knights as Struan Hutchison's been on the bench, so it's going to be interesting to see what their team looks like. But most teams in Scottish rugby, never mind the Borders, find it hard to get a young, promising fly half. And I was impressed with Xander Ramage when he played, I think it was Gala, the Gala game. He was really, really good at the Green Yards. Obviously Townsend as well. We covered the Shield final at the Dam Health, and he was a standout player for them as well. Really driven, really articulate. He's got a good rugby brain. So Melrose are blessed with having 2 really good playmakers in there, and if they could get them both on the field, they could be a really expansive, dangerous team. But it's difficult to judge where Melrose are going to be, and I think for all teams it's difficult to judge where they're going to be. But certainly after the first week we'll have a better idea. But good to see young Luke Townsend getting a start.
Well, on to National 2. Great to see 2 Borders teams among the 12 teams in that division. Let's start with Peebles, who had a good competitive game last week against Kelso, and though they went down 28-0, that will have prepared them very well for the home game against Cartha Queen's Park, who were relegated last season from National 1. And here's head coach Ian Chisholm.
We're really looking forward to getting stuck into our first league game against Carthon. I've been coaching and playing against them for the last few years, and I understand what they're going to bring. I know Peter Lavery's their head coach now that Tam Davidson's moved on, and I understand what they're going to bring, and I don't think they're going to be too different. We've had a look at a few of their games from pre-season, and they're going to play like a border team. I think they're going to play off 9 a lot, they're going to kick a lot, and that's going to give us loads of opportunity. Our guys love defending off 9, and they love counter-attack opportunities, so I think if we're able to nail what we want to do, the game will go okay for us, squad-wise. We've got Willie Napier, Andy Muir, John Gray making up the front row, Ross Brown and Cameron Pye making up the second row after Cammy put in a really good showing against Kelso there. Rob Harrison, Dalton Hall and Roddy Guinea are in the back row, with David Collins and Greg Rayburn as halfbacks. James Dow, Buster Davidson and Hamish Barber make up the back three, with Adam McDonald and Jack Harrison making up the centres. We've got a really strong bench this weekend, and I think we want that to be a real strength of ours throughout the season. So on the bench we've got Ryan McConnell, club captain Neil Hogarth returns after an ankle injury in pre-season, with Lewis Copeland and Donald Anderson making up at the bench. We're excited about this weekend, and we feel like we've prepared really well. Kelso last week, we conceded 4 tries, yes, but we created a lot of opportunities, and it's gave us a lot of opportunity to sit down with players one-to-one and as a group and go through the detail that we're looking for us to execute. And the 4 tries that we conceded at the weekend, they were just wee naive things like leaving guard, turning your back on a quick throw-in, especially when Bruce McNeil's around, and just miscommunication in defence. Otherwise, I'm pretty happy where we are, and I'm confident going into the weekend.
Well, also in National 2 this season are Berwick, led by head coach Colin Young, and I sat down with Colin recently for a chat to get his thoughts on stepping up another level this season, which starts with a long trip to Hamilton Bulls.
Numbers has been reasonable for pre-season. Always like more. Commitment from the boys has been good. We've been working hard. We brought in Gary Holborn along to help us as well this year with a bit of coaching, and Gareth Hull hung up his playing boots last year, and he's been doing a Thursday night skill session with the boys. So we're all committed, and we're all looking quite good.
And great to have those 2 names in particular, and others as well, still very much connected with Berwick. And that's the thing, isn't it, that we always find is that even the ex-players, they still want to be involved.
No, it is. It's been great to see Gary coming back into the town.
He's not going to play, is he?
Well, yeah, you never know. Never say never with Gary. It's been great to have him back in the squad, and a good experience. He's won everything with Melrose, and obviously got the Scottish Clubs cap as well. So he's got a wealth of experience. And Gareth he's looked after his body well. He's quite good with fitness drills and things like that. So he's been an addition and full of enthusiasm.
It's going to be very interesting this year, of course, moving up. You earned that promotion to National 2, and you'll be playing the likes of Boroughmuir. Now, this time last year we'd have probably thought that was not going to happen, but it has happened. And of course the other plus, of course, you avoid Orkney, big travelling.
No, a lot of people said that the league have you got more travelling in, and I don't really think we have, really, to be fair. There's some nice jaunts up to some nice places and some good hard rugby grounds like PL, Preston Lodge there, and like you said, Boroughmuir last week, obviously, in Hamilton and Kirkcaldy. So we've got a good regionalised bit of rugby anyway, I would say, with not too much travelling, and they are difficult places to go. Knowing fine well playing there over a few years, but it'll be a good test. Let's see how we go.
But you're used to travelling, aren't you, out in Berwick?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. No, we are very used to travelling, so a trip to Orkney is probably like a next door neighbour for us, kind of style. No, we always get on the bus, and we'll always have a good bus journey home after a win, lose or draw. So yeah, it's always about the social side at the end of it as well. Like I said to the boys on Thursday night, we just need to start enjoying ourselves, and I don't know if I've been putting a little bit too much pressure on them or what recently, but we just need to enjoy ourselves and play with a smile on our face. We're playing with friends. Everybody's from Berwick. We've all grown up together. let's just enjoy it.
Nice to get a derby as well with Peebles, isn't it? They're coming to Scrimmage and you're going to the Guides.
No, border derbies is great. I used to love playing in them, and I can always remember playing out on Mansfield here with Roddy Deans, and Roddy and I used to like have a competition, just 1-0, 2-0, amount of turnovers or tackles or whatever it was, and a bit of banter. I don't know if the players have really got that nowadays. Like I was just speaking to David Chatlang saying about that. I don't think the players have really got that with the opposition, because they just don't play enough border rugby derbies, so they don't know each other really. But it'll be good to get a proper border derby, home and away. The passion will be different.
Well, the first up match for you is a trip to Hamilton Bulls, and it's a club that I've been to a couple of times when I was covering National 1 a few years ago. And like Berwick, very, very welcoming, lovely club, lovely people out there, and they love the rugby.
I think I've only been at Hamilton once, I think, really, Stuart. So I can't remember what that was like off the pitch, but I can remember a battle on the pitch, and it was a very bleak, miserable day that day, worse than what you got in Berwick as well. But hopefully the sun will be shining and we'll be able to see two teams playing rugby. If that's their forte, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know anything about these other clubs. Worry about ourselves, like I've always said to you. Look after number one and let them worry about us rather than us worry about them.
And you still have, at the moment, the shield is still in the cabinet because of COVID. You've had it longer than, most people.
No, it's still...
But sadly, it's going to have to go back because you're not involved in any competition this season.
No, sadly, it will need a dust off and handed back to Murrayfield in April sometime. But no, I was just speaking to David Chatlang there about the shield competition and cup competition and how we're going to miss it this year. It is a great day out for the club. And for the town, if you're fortunate enough to get up to Murrayfield, to be on the National Stadium in front of friends, family, and then how you're treated throughout the day, you're treated virtually like a professional, soaking up the atmosphere. It's a great day, and most rugby players would love to play on Murrayfield or coach at Murrayfield. It would probably be the pinnacle of their career. So it's nice. It's a great day out, but reluctantly we'll be handing that shield back.
You're in National 2 now, obviously, big moment for the club. You haven't been that high for a long time within Scottish rugby. How do you actually approach it as a coach now? Are you looking to consolidate your position in there, or are you just targeting as high as you can go, so long as you stay there next year?
I'm looking for promotion, Stuart. I've literally said to the boys on Thursday night, if we get it right, the mindset, the talent is endless. And you've been down to Berwick, you've seen it, you've covered the final. We play a decent brand of rugby, I would like to think, and if they get the top 2 inches right, like in any sport, if you get the top 2 inches right on your day and you win a couple of games, that success just bangs on, and before you know it, success breeds success. So we would, and that's not being arrogant, that's me being honest with my players. I do believe that we could do something, but we'll have to get off the ground running, and that's what we're looking for, a good start, and then we'll see where we are after 4 or 5 games in.
Good guy, Colin Young, and a great club as well. They certainly always are very welcoming to us whenever we go across the border to Berwick. But how do you think they're going to do on the pitch this season, Dale?
I think it's interesting coming up from going up a league. It's a difficult league. I think especially when you get to that level. I think the player commitment's also an issue that you've got to juggle with. He said, I think he even opened up that interview with saying that numbers have been reasonable, which means that they've not been great, I think, but they've got a good cohort. I think Berwick have, they've been up and then they've been down, and this is them rising back up again, and really getting their kind of shop in order. But it is going to be difficult. It's great to have a derby in that league as well, because I think that is something that Peebles have missed. And from a Peebles point of view, listening to Ian Chisholm, I would love to play under Ian Chisholm because he's got such a good rugby knowledge. He grabs a club and he really gets invested in it. You can hear him just rattling the names off when he's mentioning the team. And I think they're enjoying having Ian Chisholm there. And I think it's about time that they've actually, Peebles is a huge, huge place in terms of the rugby numbers that they have. And it's about time they got a rugby guy in place as well. And I'm probably saying that, I'm saying that from a Peebles point of view, but from a Berwick point of view, it's very similar. They've got the longevity there with Colin Young, who's been there for a long, long, long time. He's dedicated most of his life to trying to make sure Berwick, have a real place in Scottish club rugby. And it seems, attracting players back like Gary Holborn, players that can really contribute back to the club. And, it's hard to kind of pick out how it's going to go, but it's certainly going to be interesting seeing the first few weeks and seeing who's going to be the table toppers after like 3-4 games.
Well, we're certainly going to be keeping an eye on October the 8th, the big date at Scremerson, historic date as well. That will be Berwick against Peebles, and if we possibly can, we shall get a live commentary match out of that one, because I think that would be a remarkable event in Borders rugby culture, and we will certainly look forward to that. October the 8th, Berwick against Peebles at Scremerson. So let's move on to the East Leagues now. Duns begin their East League 1 campaign with a home match against Forrester, while in Division 2, Hoytland have a home tie to start off with against Pennycook, while Langham travel to play Livingston. And we caught up with the Langham captain, Nathan Smith.
Always a tough place to go. You don't quite know what they're going to have, but usually a lot bigger than us, so we always look to run them about, try and go wide as often as we can. Team-wise, everybody's looking really sharp. We didn't have much time off after last season, and we went straight back in to pre-season with circuit sessions, sprint sessions, and a lot of gym work as well. Much the same team as last year. We haven't really lost anybody. Young Ruri Forbes will be coming in. He's making his first league start, so it's exciting for him, exciting for us, and watching young lads come through and play in the first team. So yeah, we just hopefully get up the road, get the first win, and get the momentum going.
So that is Nathan Smith. We wish them all the best as well. Nearly promoted last campaign. They just fell short in their centenary season, but they're building back well, and they must be contenders again. What do you reckon to Division 2?
Yeah, it's again when you go further down, it's the same issues as I mentioned about Nat 3, except they're just Nat 2, sorry, but they're just compounded a little bit more. It's difficult to contain a consistent team throughout, because the further down you go, sometimes it gets more social. But it was a very, very promising year for Langham last year, just missing out in promotion, as you said, and they'll be wanting to build back again. They've seemed to have shook themselves as well and got that rugby culture back, and I think all the clubs really need that. It's almost the first positive step towards really getting that rugby culture really ingrained back in the Borders. But I wish them all the best. I hope they have another good campaign. I know a couple of the players who are there, a couple of players that are still playing, like say Stevie Nicol, who played against, now work with. He's a good Langham guy, loves the club, loves what it does for him and his his friends and his family. So with success comes better times. So hopefully Langham have they've got another fruitful campaign ahead.
Well, we'll have Hugh Brown covering Langham's game at Livingston on Borders Rugby Special. Well, finally on to East League 3 and away games for all our teams. Earlston travelling to Inverleith. Hoyk Quins back again after a year off, now under head coach Brian Rennick, and they go to my old school ground at Bangham to play Trinity Academicals. And Galloway M also on the road to Lismore. We caught up with the head coach Stuart Walker.
Yeah, we're really looking forward to Saturday, our first league game against Lismore. We've had a good pre-season, and unfortunately towards the end we've picked up a few knocks and a couple of injuries. However, for Saturday, I'm really looking for the boys to put in a committed performance and work on the things that we've been doing in training. Trying to move the ball around and play, a expansive game is kind of what we're working towards. And really getting up in their face in defence. We know Lismore will be strong, they always are, so it'll be a tough first game, but we're really looking forward to it, and hopefully we can put in a strong performance.
So quite a competitive league, that East League 3. Yeah,
especially at Galloway M. They started quite well last year, and they had a horrific time with injuries, and it seemed every week there was a more serious injury coming out of that club. And I remember sitting in the club room speaking to a few of the guys, when we started doing this last year, and they just have that, again, good culture, good, a lot of guys that contribute a lot of time to the club, and you feel if they can keep that squad together and entice some more players to the club to play some rugby, then they could start coming up the leagues, but they'll just want to try and get a few games under their belt initially and build some form, get some confidence, and then have a successful campaign.
Excellent. Well, that's just about it for today, and very much a packed programme. Thanks to Dale Clancy. Do join us live for Borders Rugby Special tomorrow at 2 for 3 hours of rugby, and we'll be back next Friday for our Friday Rugby Preview. Bye for now.